If real stories of marital betrayal resonate with you, you've found the right place. Show your support with a like and hit that subscribe button. My name is Rebecca Carson, and I should have trusted my gut 6 months ago. I'm 34 years old, married to Daniel for 8 years, and until recently, I thought I knew everything about my life. We live in a comfortable townhouse in Silver Spring, Maryland, close enough to DC that his consulting work made sense, far enough that we could afford something with a backyard. Daniel is 41, successful, charming in that effortless way that makes waiters remember his name and clients trust him with 6-figure deals. He works in corporate finance, or at least that's what I've always been told. Long hours, frequent travel, the kind of career that swallows weekends and spits out apologies. I never questioned it, not at first. But patterns have a way of whispering before they scream. It started small. His phone, always face down on the counter, always on silent. He'd glance at it during dinner, smile that distant smile and say, "Just work." I believed him because I wanted to, because doubting your husband feels like doubting your entire foundation. Then came the business dinners, 3 times a month, sometimes 4, always evenings, always in Bethesda or Arlington, places I'd never been invited to join. "Client meetings," he'd say. "Boring stuff. You'd hate it." He'd kiss my forehead, smell like expensive cologne, and disappear until nearly midnight. I started noticing the timing. Thursday nights, specifically, like clockwork, and the way he'd check his calendar obsessively before confirming plans with me, always making sure nothing overlapped. Last month, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket.
Hey, so for dinner tonight, I was thinking we could go to that new Italian place.
4 entrees, a bottle of wine that cost more than our monthly utilities. The date matched one of his solo client dinners. 4 entrees. I didn't confront him. I folded the receipt back into his pocket and said nothing. But something cracked inside me that day. A hairline fracture that kept spreading every time he smiled and lied. 2 weeks ago, he mentioned another dinner. "Big one," he said. "Can't miss it. I'll probably be late." This time I didn't ask questions. This time I made a decision. I was going to see for myself what a business dinner with my husband actually looked like. I had no idea I was about to discover I wasn't really his wife at all. Daniel announced the dinner on a Tuesday morning over coffee. "Thursday night," he said casually, scrolling through his phone. "Leadership Summit dinner at the Hamilton. Downtown. Should wrap up by 10. The Hamilton." I knew the place. Upscale American bistro near the White House. The kind of spot where senators eat and proposals get signed. Impressive. Professional. Exactly the kind of venue that made his story sound bulletproof. "Another late one?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Yeah." He didn't look up. "This one's critical. Regional VPs flying in. I need to make an impression." I nodded, sipping my coffee. "Want me to pick up dry cleaning for your Navy suit?" He smiled then, that warm smile that used to make me feel safe. "You're the best." "Thanks, Beck." He kissed the top of my head and left for the office. I sat there for 20 minutes after his car pulled away, staring at nothing. The Hamilton. Thursday at 7:30. He'd given me every detail I needed without realizing it. I spent the next 2 days in a strange fog, going through motions, smiling when I was supposed to, but feeling like I was watching my life from outside my body. Part of me wanted to be wrong, desperately. Part of me wanted to show up and see him sitting at a table full of middle-aged men in suits, bored out of his mind, exactly where he said he'd be. But I knew better. Thursday came. Daniel left at 6:15, freshly showered, smelling like sandalwood and lies. "Love you," he called from the doorway. "Love you too," I said automatically. I waited 15 minutes. Then I changed into a simple black dress, pulled my hair back, applied minimal makeup. I didn't want to stand out. I wanted to be invisible. The drive into the city felt surreal. Traffic on 16th Street was heavy, giving me too much time to think. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I wasn't going to confront him. I just needed to see. I parked 3 blocks away and walked. The October air was cold against my bare arms. The Hamilton's windows glowed warm and golden ahead of me. I stepped inside, and my entire world shattered in the time it took to scan the room. The Hamilton was elegant chaos. Exposed brick, chandeliers casting amber light, the hum of conversation blending with soft jazz from invisible speakers. Tables were packed with DC's polished elite, lawyers, lobbyists, people who knew how to look important. I stood near the host stand, partially hidden behind a column, scanning the dining room. And then I saw him. Daniel sat at a corner booth, the kind with high-backed leather seating that offered privacy. But he wasn't surrounded by regional VPs in business suits. He wasn't shaking hands or reviewing presentations. He was laughing. Sitting beside him was a woman, late 30s, dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, wearing a cream blouse that looked expensive. She leaned into him while she spoke, comfortable, familiar. Across from them sat 2 children, a boy who looked about 10, and a girl maybe 7 or 8. They were coloring on paper placemats with crayons the restaurant must have provided. The boy said something, and Daniel ruffled his hair. The girl held up her drawing, and Daniel examined it with exaggerated seriousness, before breaking into a smile. The woman kissed his cheek. It wasn't a stolen moment. It wasn't a secret affair captured in a dark corner. It was a family dinner. I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled. The noise of the restaurant became muffled, distant, like I was underwater. This wasn't what I'd expected. I'd prepared myself for a mistress, a younger woman maybe, someone he was sneaking around with, something I could name and confront and fight against. But this was something else entirely. The little girl climbed halfway into his lap, and he wrapped an arm around her without breaking conversation with the woman. She reached across the table to wipe something off the boy's face with her napkin, the kind of instinctive, mundane gesture only a mother makes. They looked like us. No, they looked more like us than we ever had. Daniel and I never had kids. We'd talked about it years ago, but his travel schedule always got in the way. When things settled down, he'd say. It became a comfortable excuse we both stopped questioning. But clearly, things had settled down. Just not with me. My legs felt weak. I gripped the edge of the host stand to steady myself. The hostess approached. "Table for one?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't move. Daniel threw his head back and laughed at something the boy said. And I realized I'd never heard him laugh like that at home. I should have left. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn around, walk out, process this somewhere private. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, watching a life I didn't know existed. The waiter arrived at their table with plates. Pasta for the kids, steak for Daniel. The woman had ordered salmon. She cut a piece and offered it to the little girl, who wrinkled her nose and shook her head. They all laughed. It was so normal, so devastatingly, impossibly normal. The boy said something that made Daniel lean forward, suddenly serious. He listened, really listened, in that focused way he used to listen to me in our early years. Then he nodded, squeezed the kid's shoulder, and said something that made the boy sit up straighter, proud. When was the last time Daniel had looked at me like that? Like I mattered beyond being part of the scenery? The little girl tugged on his sleeve. He turned to her immediately, giving her his full attention. She whispered something in his ear, and his face softened into the kind of smile I thought was reserved for me. I thought I knew this man. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of shared meals, shared bed, shared bills and dreams and fears. I knew he took his coffee black. I knew he hated cilantro. I knew he got quiet when he was stressed and talkative when he'd had too much wine. But I didn't know he was a father. I didn't know he tucked children into bed at night, helped with homework, showed up to school events. I didn't know he'd built an entire existence separate from ours, one with soccer practices and parent-teacher conferences and inside jokes I'd never be part of. The woman reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Not seductively, not like a mistress stealing a moment, like a wife, like someone who'd earned the right to touch him without asking permission first. My stomach twisted violently. For a second, I thought I might vomit right there in the elegant entryway of the Hamilton, surrounded by Washington's finest. The hostess touched my arm gently. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I must have looked how I felt, like someone who'd just watched the ground open beneath her feet. My voice came out strangled. "I need to." Daniel's head turned slightly, responding to something the boy said. If he looked toward the entrance, he'd see me. Something snapped inside me. The shock dissolved into pure, white-hot rage. My hands clenched into fists. My breathing turned shallow and fast. I was done hiding, done watching, done being the fool who stood in corners while her husband played happy family with someone else. I stepped forward. The hostess called after me. "Ma'am, do you have a reservation?" But I didn't stop. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, each step feeling like a small detonation. People glanced up as I passed their tables, sensing something in my energy, the way animals sense a coming storm. Daniel's back was to me. He didn't see me coming. but the woman did. Her eyes found mine when I was still 15 feet away. I watched her face change in real time. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked like terror. She went completely still. The little girl was still talking. Something about an art project at school. Daniel was nodding, smiling. The boy was stealing a piece of bread from the basket. 10 feet away now. The woman's hand shot across the table and gripped Daniel's wrist. Hard. He looked at her, confused by the sudden tension. "Daniel," she whispered. Her voice was urgent, warning. He started to ask what was wrong. Then he followed her gaze, and he saw me. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. For 3 full seconds, we just stared at each other across that shrinking distance. The children noticed the shift. They stopped talking and looked between their parents. Because that's what they were, I realized with sickening clarity. Their parents. I was 5 feet away now, close enough to see the panic in his eyes, close enough to smell his cologne, close enough to flip that table and watch their perfect little dinner scatter across the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. I opened my mouth, ready to scream, ready to destroy everything in this room, ready to make sure everyone in the Hamilton knew exactly what kind of man Daniel Carson was. But then the woman spoke, not to him, to me. "Please," she whispered. Her voice was shaking. "Please don't do this in front of the kids." And something in her eyes stopped me cold. It wasn't defiance. It was fear. Fear. Not guilt. Not shame. Not the smug satisfaction of a mistress who'd won. Fear. The woman's eyes were wide, pleading. Her hand was still gripping Daniel's wrist so tightly her knuckles had gone white. But she wasn't looking at him for protection. She was looking at me like I was the threat. "Who are you?" I managed to say. My voice sounded foreign, distant. The little girl tugged on the woman's sleeve. "Mommy? What's wrong?" "Mommy." The word hit me like a physical blow. Daniel finally found his voice. "Rebecca." It came out hoarse, desperate. He started to stand, but the woman's grip tightened, holding him in place. "Not here," she hissed at him. Then, to me, quieter. "Please, not in front of them." The boy was staring at me now, confused and frightened. He looked so much like Daniel it made my chest ache. Same jawline, same dark eyes. There was no question whose child he was. "How old are they?" I heard myself ask. The woman flinched. "Please, how old?" My voice was louder now. A couple at a nearby table glanced over. She swallowed hard. "Nathan is 10. Emily is 7. 10 years old. We'd been married for 8. The math didn't just add up. It demolished everything I thought I knew. Daniel had been a father for a decade. 2 years before he ever proposed to me, before he'd gotten down on one knee in Annapolis and promised me forever, before the wedding at that vineyard in Loudoun County where he'd cried during his vows. I looked at the woman again, really looked at her this time. She was terrified, yes, but not because she'd been caught. She was scared of me, like I was the unpredictable element, like I was the one who didn't belong. "You knew about me," I said slowly. "Didn't you?" She didn't answer, but I saw the truth in the way she couldn't meet my eyes. Oh my God. The realization was choking me. "You knew about me." Daniel stood abruptly. The sudden movement startled both children. "Rebecca, let's go outside. We can talk." "Talk?" I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. "You want to talk?" "Daddy?" Emily's voice was small, frightened. The woman, his wife, I realized with horror, pulled both children closer to her, physically shielding them. From me, like I was the danger. But her eyes, when they met mine again, there was something else there now. Something besides fear. Recognition. She knew who I was. She'd always known. "You're Rebecca," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. The way she said my name, like she'd heard it before, maybe many times, made my blood run cold. "How do you know my name?" I whispered. She glanced at Daniel, then back at me. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking. "Because he told me about you. Years ago." She paused, and I saw her throat work as she swallowed. "He said you were a mistake. A mistake." The word hung in the air between us like poison. "What?" It came out as barely a whisper. Daniel's face had gone from pale to gray. "Sarah, don't..." "Sarah." I repeated her name, tasting it. The woman who'd been living my life, or had I been living hers? She stood now, slowly, keeping the children behind her. Nathan was pulling on her arm, asking questions she wasn't answering. Emily had started crying softly. "You need to leave," Sarah said. Her voice was stronger now, but still shaking. You're upsetting my children. Your children? The laugh that escaped me was razor sharp. Your husband is my husband. Or did he forget to mention that part? Rebecca. Daniel reached for my arm, but I jerked away so violently the people at the next table openly stared now. Sarah's expression shifted then. The fear was still there, but something else surfaced beneath it. Something that looked almost like pity? He's not your husband, she said quietly. The restaurant noise seemed to fade. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and erratic. Excuse me? She glanced at Daniel, and in that look, I saw 8 years of my life rewritten. She wasn't asking his permission. She was giving him one last chance to do this himself. He said nothing, just stood there, trapped between us, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Sarah turned back to me. Daniel and I have been married for 12 years. We got married in 2013, at her parents' house in Charlottesville. Nathan was a ring bearer. He was just turning 1. Her voice gained strength as she spoke, like she'd been holding this in for years. We have a mortgage together, joint bank accounts. Our names are both on the kids' birth certificates. I couldn't breathe. That's not possible. We got married in 2016. I have the certificate. I have the photos. I have... What? She interrupted. A ceremony? A celebration? Her eyes were wet now, but her voice didn't break. So do I, Rebecca. The difference is mine was legal. The floor wasn't just disappearing. It had never been there at all. You're lying. But even as I said it, pieces were clicking into place. The separate bank account he'd insisted on for business purposes. The way he'd always handled our taxes privately. The fact that I'd never met his parents, who lived overseas but whom he visited alone twice a year. Show her, Sarah said to Daniel. It wasn't a request. He didn't move. Show her, or I will, Sarah pressed. She deserves to know the truth. With shaking hands, Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. He withdrew a card. Not a credit card, not a business card. A driver's license. He held it up so I could see it. The address listed wasn't our townhouse in Silver Spring. It was somewhere in Arlington, a place I'd never been. The name was correct, Daniel James Carson. But under marital status, in small print it said, married. Issue date, 2013. 2 years before I ever met him. The restaurant spun around me. I don't understand. My voice sounded small, childlike. We have a marriage certificate. We had a wedding. There were 200 people there. A ceremony, Sarah repeated, and now I heard the edge in her voice. Not cruelty, but exhaustion, like she'd carried this weight for far too long. A celebration, but not a legal marriage. You can have a ceremony anywhere, Rebecca. You can have a minister, flowers, vows. But without filing the paperwork with the state, she trailed off, letting the implication hang. I looked at Daniel. Tell me she's lying. He couldn't meet my eyes. Tell me! My voice cracked, too loud. A waiter hovering nearby stepped back. The manager was making his way toward us. I'm sorry. It was all he said. 2 words that confirmed everything. My legs gave out. I grabbed the back of an empty chair to keep from collapsing. The marriage license. We signed it. I remember signing it. Did you ever see the filed copy? Sarah asked quietly. The one stamped by the county clerk? I hadn't. Daniel had handled all of that. For your business trip, he'd said. I'll take care of the paperwork. Less stress for you. And I'd believed him. Because why wouldn't I? Oh God. The nausea was back. Stronger now. The house. The lease is in your name only. You said it was easier for tax purposes. Rebecca, the bank accounts. Separate. The credit cards. Everything is separate. I was talking faster now. Pieces assembling into a horrifying picture. You filed taxes separately. You said it was because of your business structure. I never questioned it because I trusted you. Every decision that had seemed practical at the time now revealed itself as deliberate architecture. He'd built a cage so carefully, I'd never noticed the bars. How long? I looked at Sarah. How long have you known about me? She glanced at the children. Nathan was pale and silent. Emily was crying into her mother's side. Not here, Sarah said. They don't need to hear this. Answer me. Sarah's jaw tightened. 4 years. I found out 4 years ago. 4 years. She'd known for 4 years and said nothing. Why didn't you? I couldn't even finish the question. Because I have children, Sarah said, and for the first time, anger flashed in her eyes. Because blowing up their world to punish him meant destroying them too. Because I thought... She stopped, swallowed hard. I thought if I kept quiet, kept the family together. Eventually, he'd end it with you on his own. But he didn't, I whispered. No. She looked at Daniel with something that might have been hatred or might have been grief. He didn't. The manager arrived at our table. Folks, I'm going to have to ask you to take this outside. You're disturbing other guests. I barely heard him. My entire existence had just been revealed as fiction. Every anniversary we'd celebrated, every time I'd called myself Mrs. Carson, every plan we'd made for the future, all of it, lies built on lies. I walked out of the Hamilton in a daze. I don't remember leaving. One moment I was standing there, watching my life dissolve, and the next, I was on the sidewalk, the cold October air burning my lungs. Behind me, I heard Daniel's voice. Rebecca, wait. I kept walking, faster. My heels clicked against the pavement in an erratic rhythm. Rebecca, please, let me explain. I spun around so fast he nearly collided with me. Explain? Explain what, exactly? Which part? My voice was rising, hysteria creeping in at the edges. Explain how you married someone else and then married me anyway? Explain how you have children I never knew existed? Explain how I've been living a lie for 8 years? He reached for me and I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. A couple walking past us hurried by, sensing the volatility. I never meant for this to happen, Daniel said. His voice was thick with something. Guilt, fear, maybe even genuine remorse. But it didn't matter anymore. Nothing he could say would matter. You never meant for this to happen? I laughed, and it sounded deranged. You accidentally created an entire second family. You accidentally lied to me every single day for 8 years. You weren't nothing. Then what was I? I screamed it. I didn't care who heard. What the hell was I, Daniel? He flinched. You are someone I love. Love. The word tasted like acid. You don't know what that word means. I thought about all the nights he'd held me, all the times he'd whispered that I was his everything, the trip to Napa for our 5th anniversary, the Christmas he'd given me a necklace with our wedding date engraved on it, a date that meant nothing because the marriage didn't exist. Every memory was contaminated now, every moment of happiness poisoned. But then something shifted inside me. The grief crystallized into something harder, something colder. Clarity. You know what? I said, my voice suddenly calm. You're right. You do love me. You loved having 2 lives. 2 women. 2 versions of yourself. I stepped closer to him. But here's what you didn't count on. He looked wary now. Rebecca, I'm not Sarah. I don't have kids to protect. I don't have a reason to stay quiet. I pulled out my phone, and I have nothing left to lose. His face went white. What are you doing? What I should have done the moment I found that receipt. I opened my contacts. I'm calling your office, then your parents, then every single person at that consulting firm you're so proud of. Rebecca, don't. You'll destroy everything. Good, I said, and I meant it. I hit dial. I made 17 phone calls that night. The first was to Daniel's direct supervisor at the consulting firm. I was calm, articulate, devastatingly detailed. I thought you should know that one of your senior partners has been committing fraud. He's been claiming tax deductions for a spouse and dependents that don't legally exist in his primary household. The second call was to his parents in Arizona, the ones he'd told me lived overseas. His mother answered, Mrs. Carson, this is Rebecca, your son's other wife, the one he forgot to divorce before marrying me. We should talk. By the 3rd call, Daniel was blowing up my phone. I blocked him. By the 7th, Sarah called. What are you doing? Her voice was panicked. What you should have done 4 years ago, I said. I'm telling the truth. You're going to destroy him. He destroyed himself. I hung up. I called our landlord and informed him that Daniel had been using our address for fraudulent purposes. I called the bank where he had his business account and reported suspected financial irregularities. I didn't lie. I simply told them facts and let them investigate. Then I got creative. I took every photo from our fake wedding, all 200 guests worth, and created a simple website. The wedding that never was. A true story. I laid it all out. The fake marriage certificate, the timeline, copies of Sarah's real marriage license I'd obtained through public records, screenshots of Daniel's driver's license with the Arlington address. I didn't editorialize. I didn't need to. The facts were damning enough. I posted the link on every social media platform I had, tagged every mutual friend, every colleague, every person who'd celebrated our love story. Within 6 hours, it had been shared 300 times. Within 24 hours, Daniel's firm had placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. Within 48 hours, his face was on a local news segment about marriage fraud. Sarah filed for divorce and full custody 3 days later. This time, when she faced him in court, she had ammunition, evidence that he'd committed bigamy in practice, if not in law, that he'd financially supported 2 households while claiming hardship in child support negotiations. She got everything: the house, full custody, his retirement accounts. I got something better. I got my voice back. 2 months later, I sat in a coffee shop in Baltimore, working on my laptop. I'd started a blog, The Second Wife Who Wasn't, sharing my story and connecting with other women who'd discovered similar betrayals. It was gaining traction. Publishers had reached out. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You destroyed my life, Daniel." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "No." I revealed it. "There's a difference." I blocked the number and closed my laptop. Outside, the December sun was breaking through clouds. I ordered another coffee, this time with my real name. Not Mrs. Carson, just Rebecca. And for the first time in 8 years, that felt like enough. We appreciate you staying until the very end. Your engagement matters deeply. A like and subscription help us continue sharing these stories. Until next time.